Hi there. We carry on exploring different topics. Today, we will present the investigation of Sasha Sulim, who directed a film about the Angarsk maniac, which has almost 4 million views. It's become one of the most viewed videos on our channel. This time, Sasha decided to investigate another notorious story, the Kushchevskaya massacre in Krasnodar Krai. 12 people were killed at night on November 4th, 2010. It happened more than 10 years ago. Children were among the murdered. Kushchevskaya has become a generic name, and so has the Tsapoks, which were surnames of the family who controlled the area. Now, 10 years later, witnesses provide testimony. It comes from girls of Kushchevskaya who were raped by the bandits, while the locals stayed silent. Farmers who had to give up their property or were murdered, while police ignored the crimes. Those who worked for the Tsapoks knew who they were working for, but carried on doing it. This part of the investigation left the deepest impression on me. I mean, the banality of evil, which we were talking about in a recent video. But that's not all. After the gang was caught, arrested, and sentenced, the lawlessness in Kushchevskaya did not end. This house belongs to the Ametovs, a farmer's family. Late at night, on November 4th, 2010, Sergei Tsapok and 5 of his partners in crime walked in and murdered 12 people. I asked Tsapok a question, what he was going to do here. He said he would kill everyone. 4 of the dead were children, 14 years old, 5 years old, 18 months old, and 9 months old. The youngest, Amira, died from smoke inhalation. The bodies of the others were found with cut and stab wounds. Not only were they my friends and neighbors, but my niece and her son died that night. We were very lucky not to be there. In order to commit the crime, the Tsapoks needed only 10 minutes. Then they ventured out to their favorite cafe, Malinki. The editor-in-chief, Murat, called me and asked whether I knew where he wanted to send me. I said no. He told me to watch the news and call back. The burial of the massacre victims in Kushchevskaya took place today. The criminal case for the murder of 2 and more people was initiated. Not even the local, but the district investigation department of the investigative committee under the General Prosecution of Russia have already joined the investigation. The crew of Wait For Me TV program was there. That's how the tragedy appeared among nationwide news. I arrived at work and received a call from my niece. She said something horrible had happened at the Ametovs' house. I wondered, what? She said a boiler exploded and everyone was burnt up. I said we were watching a film until 12 that night, but nothing exploded there. The Tsapok surname came up soon. We knew they were a gang. Were you sure of who did that? Yes, I was completely sure. This kind of crime is committed by a certain type of people. It's insane to murder children. Then we discovered that the Tsapoks were in power for 20 years there. The government was not present there for 20 years. No police, no court. The Tsapoks were the only rulers. Lawlessness leads to recklessness. They killed people, shot people, hid their bodies, and they got away with that. Those people, those children, they've saved so many people, including my family. They saved many. There was a big list of people to be murdered. If they had continued to kill 1 or 2 people, like they did before, no one would have been interested. People in Kushchevskaya say that those who died in the Ametovs' house should be canonized. Thanks to the dead, this horror was stopped. Sergei Tsapok's gang is often compared to the Sicilian mafia. I don't like this comparison because I don't want to romanticize the terror which was present in the village for almost 20 years. Nonetheless, some similarities with the mafia can be seen. Over the 4 days we spent here, I understood there is not a single person here who I can trust 100%. So the park is that way? Yes. I used to know the village very well. I knew building numbers. I entered people's houses, talked to them. We had 64 crimes a year, and most of them were solved. So, before the 1990s, before all that chaos, was Kushchevskaya a highly criminal place? No. There were murders and serious crimes, rapes, just like in every other town. Everything was under control. Policemen were hardworking. How were the 1990s? It was in good order. Were there street fights? Sometimes. How often? There were, but it was mostly hooligans. We even had some riots. It all started in the 1990s. Uncle Kolya Tsapok opened a gym where local sportsmen and people trained. They later became fighters of Tsapok's gang. I guess we were getting along well. I could not have thought he was the organizer and their so-called godfather. You say until the 1990s you knew every family really well. Well, he did sports and I thought he was all right. He did not actually coach them that much to become criminals. Maybe after 1995, he became their leader. The gang accumulated their strength. Uncle Kolya was gradually replaced by his nephew, also Nikolai. In the late 1990s, he became the main criminal authority of Kushchevskaya village. When Nikolai Tsapok was 18, he became the gang's leader. The gang had about 30 people then. They were typical thugs. They did whatever they wanted and were very cruel. They organized many pointless fights and pointless murders. When I was a policeman, they were observed by police. What were they doing? They were hooligans. They took part in fights, broke noses. They committed light crimes, but not serious ones, all the time. You say it like fighting and breaking someone's nose is not a big deal. Well, it's not a murder or a robbery. When I retired, I heard that they raped and kidnapped people, but no one reported it to the police. If someone did report it, they got away with it. I know someone who dated Nikolai. Nikolai seemed sensible. He was a nice guy. If she was at a party and had to be home by 12, he took her home by 12. If he had not been murdered, this lawlessness would not have occurred. In 2002, Nikolai was murdered and replaced by Sergei, his younger brother. The business of the Tsapoks was managed by their mother, Nadezhda Tsapok, known as Tsapчиха. She made all the decisions in their family. Like in The Godfather, everyone was listening to the oldest. No one would risk contradicting her. They were mostly 20, 25 years old. When her son was tortured in jail, she talked about him in a very unemotional way. But when it came to agriculture, her cows, she cried because it was taken away from her, because the cows were innocent and her land was still alive, producing crops, and the farming was prospering. She said after she began breeding cows, she stopped eating meat because it's cruel. Sergei had some mental issues because when Nikolai was murdered, Sergei took control over everything, the gang. It seems he got crazy. In terms of cruelty, yes. He was swimming in blood. His best friend and the main business partner was Vyacheslav Tsapoks. His wife, Natalia Strishnyaya, also was involved in the gang. Living in Kushchevskaya and not cooperating with Sergei Tsapok was impossible. Say it was not safe for your life. Everyone knew that. Yes, they cooperated. If Tsapok offered friendship, you could not reject it in the early 2000s. In the late 2000s, Fyodor Streltsov joined the team of Tsapok. He was given the nickname Fedya the Cash. He was the treasurer and Grey Cardinal of the gang. One more person to mention is Vladimir Alexeyev. Her interviewees call him Vova the Lawless. He's one of the most cruel members of the gang. He was one of the main assistants of Sergei Tsapok. Symbols of their power were rape and violence. They forced the local youth to guard their fields. It carried on for a while. It was not even about money or authority. They wanted to feel that they were the owners. And people who didn't agree, they had their own methods with those. Well-known farmers and businessmen Valery and Roman Bogachev were murdered in 2003. They were shot right in front of their own house. Gang member Andrei, who was the murderer, came to the funeral. Yes, along with Tsapok. He even came with flowers. But Sergei was looking at me while leaving the flowers. Of that, I'm sure. Later, it was discovered that Sergei had a list that had names of other entrepreneurs, businessmen, and farmers, who he also planned to kill. Some say he did it as revenge for his older brother, Nikolai. Others say it was because they did not want to cooperate or share their business with him. How much did all your assets cost at the time? And whatever was taken away from you later? About $3 million. I understood I had to shut up and not intervene. After I looked at what was going on at the farm, how the things were managed, I knew I had to be silent. I have children and grandchildren. I couldn't get into these things. How did they manage it? Complete lawlessness. They just did it. I had no documents. The next morning, accountants came in the next morning and found no papers. Nothing. You woke up that day and realized you lost everything you used to own just because you didn't have the papers. Not only that. I mean, I still have papers proving that it's mine. But if I talked about it, I would have been killed. Half a year later, I received a paper saying the case was closed due to the lack of evidence. That's the quote. What evidence do you need? We had 2 people murdered. They were shot dead. What other evidence do you need? I don't know what evidence. These people coming back to life again?
Здрасте.
Hi there. Do you like it here? Yes, it's great. What do young people do here? Drinking, smoking. We go out in the evenings, clubs. Are the boys nice here? Yes, they behave themselves. They used a chatter method. You walk along the street, a car stops, a smiling guy asks for your name. There's a moment to decide. You cannot choose not to reply. It would be rude and they would punish it. Nor can you reply, because it would mean you want to get acquainted. At school, I was dating one of the sidekicks. They appointed an enforcer in every school. They had a person to collect money. I was 16 when I started dating him. We didn't do anything serious, though, just holding hands. They raped women and girls, university and school students. They took girls right from their classes. They tried to select girls who were not from there, but not from the Caucasus, because they were afraid of revenge. I saw him off as he left for the army. One of his friends well, how should I put it? He deflowered me. Did he rape you? He didn't beat me. He just threatened me, and he basically made me do it. Then the guy came back from his army service. My beloved one. I really thought he was the one. The second guy told him about us. Then my beloved one beat me up for the first time and made me have sex with his friend in front of him. He literally sat down in a chair and watched us do it. How his friend was raping you for the second time. Yes, in front of him. A week or so later, he told other friends. So the next time, it was two of them there. Then, when I tried to cut my veins, my parents panicked and wanted to find out what was going on. I can assume no one reported this to the police? People did. One of the police chiefs, Vladimir Finko, said that the safety of young women was a completely fabricated problem. These reports were ignored. In some cases, if the girls were underage, parents refused to report it. My parents reported it because I was only 17. I think they would have been sent to prison if I hadn't gotten scared. He was waiting for me right next to my house. He apologized. He asked me to withdraw my report. He said that he loved me and that we would leave together. And I withdrew my report. Because you trusted him or felt sorry? I thought that I couldn't decide other people's fate. Did they have the right to decide your fate? Of course not. But I don't regret not sending them to prison. I didn't commit a sin. Maybe withdrawing the report was a sin on your part? You didn't stop them. I guess so. I was not the only one to suffer. Half of the girls in the village got into the same situation. The raped girls in Kushchevskaya were labeled waste. It's a shame to be raped. No one wants to marry you. No one wants to be in touch with you. Many people, starting from girls and ending with teachers, told me this phrase: a guy won't get an erection unless a girl leads him on. They said these guys did not take modest girls. They could shout across the street, "Hey, you whore, come here and suck." They didn't keep it a secret that they performed group rapes. Did you keep a secret what happened to you? No, not at all. Probably the whole village knows it. They destroyed my life. I thought I was being pointed at, but I was not. How should I put it? I was not a girl anymore. No one would marry me. I'm still not married. Not for that reason, but it is probably in my consciousness that I do not deserve to be someone's wife because of who I am. There were Tsapok girls. They officially dated the guys from the gang. They got in different situations. They were given away like money. You mean group rapes? How did he end up? He lives here, and he's doing all right. Half a year after it happened, he got married. He has 2 kids. He's divorced now. He also has a tough life. He got into a car accident. He became disabled. He knows it's a payoff for his sins. He always asks to forgive him when we see each other. I'm not angry with him. We cannot change the past. It happened 20 years ago. None of them was sent to prison. No. Not for my case. I had this terrible moment in Kushchevskaya. I went to the medical academy and talked to teachers, students, the rector. They decided to hold a parents' meeting. What did they need to discuss? They wanted to find the guilty party, who was responsible for what happened, the rapes. They ended up accusing journalists, who made it a big deal. Parents yelled at me. Maybe they're in love. Why are you interfering? Someone asked what it had to do with Tsapok. They said if a company's worker raped them, they would not blame its CEO. They said, I don't want anyone to know my daughter was raped. You should say it was not true. The girls need to live on while you produce such labels. We don't have enough students already. I realized why Tsapoks could rule for 20 years. This village gives up its kids so easily. They don't fight for them. When do you think they became who they were? It was in the 2000s, I think. They were just hooligans before that. Then they bought the Stepnyansky farm and shared the ownership. That's when they gained the power, including the financial and administrative side. Since then, they began to consolidate power. They illegally gained ownership of many farms in the village. Can you define the scale? More than 45,000 hectares. That's around 6 farms. How many years did it take? Their activity started around 2005, I think. Between 2005 and 2010, they were managing the farms.
этими хозяйствами.
Все убийства, которые происходят в этот период,
The land of the murder victims was given to the
земля
Tsapoks,
убитых переходит к Цапкам.
to their company Artex Agro and a few other firms.
Цапковских фирм.
The primary securing of the land ownership for random people could not have been possible without administration of the local archives. So the Tsapoks had connections there. They could forge documents and get paperwork done, which would make it look like things were legal. We built this road. There was no road. We brought the materials over. At least we have some memories now. The trees are abandoned. It used to be neat and tidy here. Now it looks abandoned. They probably don't have time to take care of it. When my harvest failed, I went to the managers of Rosselsхозbank. I was hoping, since we were getting on well, they could extend my loan. When I came to sign the papers, they said they would sign it only if I gave a 51% share of my company to the businessmen they trusted. I asked who those people they trusted were. They said they were Tsapok and Tsapovyaz. I refused. That's when it all started. We went to Rosselsхозbank in Kushchevskaya village to get a loan. At the meeting, they said that I would not receive the loan unless we pay a bribe of 10%. Otherwise, I wouldn't get the loan. I refused. But Tsapok and Tsapovyaz already joined in. Natalia Strishnyaya played a big role in their criminal business. They said I could not refuse to take that loan. They said I had to take it. We borrowed 40 million. Then they asked for 30%. So we had to pay them back 7 more million. Eventually, their conditions changed, and we gave them everything. They threatened me with a gun. Who did that? Tsapok. He said I wasn't the first or the last. I was worried, and I knew I would not be the first. They needed me to continue working. They could have abused my daughters. As far as I know, Alexander Isyuk was on trial many times, including for fraud, tax evasion, etc. Maybe he could tell you that he had affairs with the Tsapoks. Or Nikolai Gordik, who was cooperating with the Tsapoks too. Searches began. The Economic Crime Department, the Tax Police, the Tax Inspectorate, the Labor Inspectorate, everyone. It was terrifying. They looked like a mafia, not a bank, who decided to use someone to solve their problems. When they realized they could not take my business, they sent me to the detention center for a month. When this happens, you have no power or resources to protect yourself. There are stories told about the relationship between the Tsapoks and the local police. Maybe that's why neither current nor ex-staff members wanted to talk to us. Since 2005, Sergei Tsapok regularly renovated the local police building. He bought computers for the staff and foreign-made cars for the senior officers. Officers saluted to Tsapok, to all the Tsapoks, and their mother. She managed farms and looked cool. When the head of the police had a meeting, the Tsapoks could come in and everyone else was dismissed. So the Tsapoks issue was to be solved first. They made up reasons to invite me to their office of Slava Kubani. When I came, I saw high-ranking officers sitting there. They had luxurious food there, caviar, vodka. Tsapok said, "This person talks too much. We don't know what he wants." He said it in a joking manner. He said I was aggressive to them and asked whether they had a vacant spot for me. They said they surely had a place for me and asked at what time I should have been collected. Everyone patronized them. The Interior Ministry, prosecutors, investigators, local and regional administration. They paid off everywhere. They stepped over other people. They showed complete lawlessness. They could burn someone's shop if they did not receive money on time. They buried people dead or alive. They could burn down one's house or flat. They bought expensive premium-class cars from Germany to give to... Are you talking about the local police? What do you mean, local? The locals only got a shot of vodka and a sandwich, maybe with caviar. So, we're talking about the General Prosecutor's Office. I said nothing. During the course of events, in parallel with banditism, he was also doing business and was quite good at expanding it. Then he went into politics, became a deputy. He became a district deputy. Then he was replaced by his supporter and went to the youth chamber of Krasnodar Krai. They have a vocational college there. Many orphans went to study there. Some were from local orphanages, others were social orphans. It means their parents were alive, but their parents did not want them. The Tsapoks patronized them. You are an orphan. You come to a new place, you know no one. You're vulnerable. Then you see there is someone powerful to support you. I grew up in Razdolnaya, where the Tsapoks built a farm. I grew up with my grandmother. When she turned 70, we were taken to an orphanage. I had a younger brother. I got there when I was 13. Then, when you were 16, you were sent to the college. Yes. They took kids to cafes, bought them juice. They scolded them if the kids were drunk. They invited them to work out in the gym. Most people in the gang went to that gym. Gradually, these powerful friends who were always on your side and helped you out in trouble could ask for your help. Could you refuse? Step by step, they became part of the gang. If you're good at boxing and can show it, rumors spread quickly. They come and ask you to join the gang. They promised money, girls. Those orphans who wanted a beautiful life, they aimed for this. They thought it was cool to be the Tsapkov's sidekick. Was it? They felt superior to other people, to other boys. They felt like they could act however they liked with girls. But they were nothing in the gang. They washed floors and cars for the older members of the gang. How is that cool?
А если как бы
And if they
отказывались,
refused for some or other reason,
тоже как бы им находилось.
then they were given another role.
Гигантские поля, которые надо
The
было
Tsapoks had
охранять,
large fields to be guarded,
убирать с
to
них
collect the
урожай.
harvest.
И тоже
They
как
just
бы народ
put people in
просто
trucks and took them there to work. This was unpaid work? That's right.
То есть людей использовали
So
как
people were used as
в прямом
slaves.
смысле.
Yes. It used to be lawless here. Now it's fine. It's different now.
Не приходят никакие там
No thugs?
там,
No.
грейд зоны.
Someone asking for a favor? It's all right now. People now ask you for a mask. Everyone's into their smartphones now. People compare each other's phones. Whose girl is prettier? Who bought a car? We have a group of rich and poor. The rich used to make fools of the poor, and they still do.
В Кущевском районе, например,
They consolidated all the land in Kushchevskaya.
соответственно, они уже
They got crazy revenues.
прибыли, у них бизнес
Their
был
business was
налажен,
doing well.
но необходимо еще так называемое какое-то
They still needed some political weight.
общение, соответственно, с теми людьми,
They wanted to
которые
get in
принимают
touch with
решения
people who
в
made
уровне
decisions
Краснодарского,
at the
вот эти
regional level.
разговоры все, фотографии распространяемые, что
There are photos of him attending Medvedev's inauguration as a representative of Krasnodar Krai.
соответственно, Медведева.
Кто была их
Who was their main patron? I went to Moscow with Tsapoks, met people there. I was there, but I won't tell you the names.
Ну хотя бы
What agency? What? What agency was it? The Ministry of Justice, the General Prosecutor's Office. Tsapoks informed his circles that he had lunch with the Minister of Agriculture, Yelena Skrinik. There was a service. Some mediators could get him in touch with her for money, and he could afford this service. He paid money, and they said it cost $2 million.
Самым близким к банде
The closest police representative to the gang was Alexander Hodich.
Александр Ходыч.
He was the head of the anti-organized crime department. In reality, he helped the Tsapoks collect money and take land from farmers.
Занимать земли у фермеров.
В отношении него в Кущевке ходил
In Kushchevskaya village, he was labeled Mr. Million.
мистер Миллион. Ну, фермеры говорили, что
Many farmers paid him this amount of money every year in order to be patronized by him.
такую дань в год.
А он делился
And he
этой
shared
данью.
this with the Tsapoks.
Они тоже
They
прибегали
used
к нему,
his services
кажется, ему платили.
and paid him.
Он был
He was an
самостоятельный
independent figure,
в этом
I
вопросе,
think.
понимаете?
People in Kushchevskaya started asking questions. I was Hodich siding with the Tsapoks. How come the police supports them? Tsapok came up with a plan to show everyone that they were enemies. They had a fight in a cafe, but it was all fake. Tsapok did kidnappings, threats, and murders, while Hodich did his thing.
В итоге Ходыч получил 7 лет за мошенничество.
Hodich ended up in prison for 7 years, accused of fraud. Now he's free. They failed to prove that he was connected to the Tsapok gang. Or maybe they never aimed for it. He was indeed in Tsapok's team. But if it was proven, he would have gotten a life sentence. For some reason, they didn't do it. To get to the truth, by having him tell everyone who was bribing him.
Кущевка – это не только Цапки.
The Tsapoks could not have done it without police and politicians' assistance.
Политических аспектов в форме депутатства.
It's exactly like in La Piovra series,
Пруд, понимаете?
like in the film with Michele Placido.
Когда вы поняли, что
When did you understand they were doing illegal actions?
деятельностью, вообще незаконной деятельностью?
Они не ходили по Кущевке в балаклавах.
It was not obvious they belonged to the gang. They didn't wear a special label.
Соответственно, для многих
People
это
found out about
информация
them after the mass murder in
после
2010.
совершения этого преступления.
Но про
But
Богачева
didn't you know about the Bogachovs,
про то,
about the
что
murders,
это перешло
about how their property was taken by the Tsapoks and
То
Tsapovyas?
есть это вот событие, конечно, тех лет, что передел земли...
They were doing land rearrangement, but I never heard someone saying they were murderers.
Я такого не слышал. Если действительно ты занимаешься своей работой, то к тебе...
If you do your job as a businessman, you won't be seen by Tsapok the criminal.
А приходит депутат Kushchevskого районного совета...
You will be seen by Sergei Tsapok, the deputy, and Vyacheslav Tsapovyaz.
Тогда с виду очень...
They looked like people who comply with laws and philanthropists.
Соответственно,
А когда вы поняли, что вы стали...
When did you learn you were part of the gang? When they killed the Baratyov brothers, when they attacked Doroshenko, when Holmovoy's son was beaten up. I began to realize they were doing illegal stuff.
То есть спустя 3 года, как вы...
So 3 years after you got in, yeah.
И тогда же вы поняли, что...
Were you terrified?
Вы поняли, что назад пути нет?
It's not that I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. My field is agriculture,
Ну тут же
but
много
there are many farms here, all controlled by them. I mean, big ones.
То есть вообще об уходе...
So you didn't think about leaving. I believe they were not the crazy murderers who were going to kill whoever they want. They basically manage the farms and help the owners make money from them.
Вам приходилось...
Were you forced to break the law? In relation to what? To anything. I want to explain that with that amount of resources, you don't need to resort to illegal measures. Any business can be bought. For 10 rubles, for 20 rubles, it's just a question of how much. Have you been sleeping well over the years? Why would they kill me? If I did something wrong, lost profit, I could have gotten into trouble. They only murdered owners who didn't want to pay off or give up their business.
Да, но осознавать, что вы работаете...
How did it feel knowing that you were working for people like this? As I said, everyone was scared. I was, and my colleagues were.
Бывали ли случаи, что вы...
Have you ever felt uncomfortable or that you didn't want to work with them? Maybe you heard about their reputation from someone?
они всегда меня называли по имени-отчеству, постарше чуть.
They always talked with me in a respectful way, and everything we did was in compliance with the law. I can't say that I was used.
Использовали.
В 2013 году суд
In
приговорил
2013, members of the Tsapok gang got from 19 years to life sentences in prison for murders, organized robbery, homicide, and other serious crimes. The economic side, like taking people's land, was not included in the case. The whole mafia aspect was not included in their case. They tried to hide the scale of their crimes. They were presented as maniacs, as if Sergei Tsapok thought one of these people killed Nikolai, so he had to take revenge. That's nonsense. Nevertheless, that's the court's decision. Economic crimes would have taken the investigation to high-ranking officials. None of them took part in the murders. We know that. The gang was doing their dirty stuff at night. And even then, how long did it take to investigate? Economic crimes leave traces. The investigation was not carried out to benefit the victims. It was carried out in the way that benefited Tsapok's patrons, who are free now. Some of them are still in power. Can you tell me who they are, or at least where they work? The prosecutor's office, the general prosecutor, them as well. And they still work there? Yes. Sergei and Nikolai's mother lives in this house.
Nadezhda Tsapok.
Here she is called Tsapchicha. She served about 7 years in prison for fraud. In 2018, she came back to Kushchevskaya village. Do you know her? I do.
Давно живете
Have you been neighbors for a while?
А вот после ее возвращения
Yes. Have you seen her after she returned?
Видимся, ну-ка.
I see her sometimes.
Ну, может быть, она
Has she
там
told
что-то
you anything?
как-то рассказывала вам.
She didn't say anything.
Я не могу с ней общаться.
I cannot be in touch with her, and she cannot be in touch with me.
Я тут недавно
But I did see her.
что она там
I've read she wanted to go to court.
выставляет. Ну, так
She will fight.
ей чего-то.
Nothing can stop her.
Ничего не остановит.
Встречался с ней, она
I
приходила.
met with her.
также
She
в
came to us for help.
Соответственно,
She wanted to get her property back that had been
снятие
seized.
арестов, с имущества, которое было
She did
у
have
нее
something
оставалось
after
какое-то
coming back from
имущество
prison.
после выхода, это самое,
Our
были
company
поданы
helped her
наши
apply
фонды
for
на
it.
заявление, в
And
различные
she got the
инстанции,
property
различные
back.
имущества были сняты.
Сейчас
What does she
что
own
в
now?
собственности осталось?
Ну, насколько мне известно,
As far as I
это
know,
магазин
a
небольшой,
shop
но
which
не
is not being used,
эксплуатируется, и
and about
примерно
10 pieces of land for
10
agriculture.
паёв земли.
She has 60 hectares of land.
Ну, 60
She
гектар,
receives
она
rent
получает, по
payment
всей
from it
видимости, арендную
and uses
плату
the money to
и
support
на что
herself.
живет.
Artex Agro.
And who ended up with Artex Agro? It belongs to Alexander Tkachov, the former governor of Krasnodar Krai. So does the factory we have here.
Мы не занимались сопровождением.
We did not do the transactional support, but later I saw documents saying that the 45,000 hectares were sold to the ex-governor of Krasnodar, Tkachov.
Летом
Summer 2014, Sergei Tsapok suddenly died in the detention center. 3 of his supporters committed suicide at different times. Vladimir Alexeyev is the only one who is still serving life in prison. Nikolai Tsapok was sentenced to 20 years in jail. Vyacheslav Tsapovyaz was sentenced to the same time in jail. A few years ago, pictures of him eating meat, crabs, and caviar in prison's resting room appeared online. Another member of the gang, Fyodor Streltsov, was free until 2018 and lived in Kushchevskaya. Then he escaped from Russia just before the criminal case against him was initiated. Now he's on the international wanted list and is said to be hiding in Ukraine. Fyodor appeared after all the hearings had passed. He was a successful businessman. He was obviously patronized by someone and helped to stay free? Of course. He was controlling all their mutual property and money.
Ну, вот это все, будем говорить, воровской общак, вот этот, который где они убивали,
He had it all.
сжимали и
Whatever they stole from other
совершали
people.
прочие действия.
Tsapok's enterprise was torn into pieces. It was a good one, though. Streltsov took part in it. He managed all the land we bought for 5 years. I worked with him for 10 years, up to 2018. I knew he was a bad person, a very tough person. Streltsov used everyone as slaves. We had to work for him. He paid us, though. You grow crops, while the others collect them. You took out a loan, thinking you would pay it back, but your crops are stolen. There was not just one case. It was pretty common. Their own lawyers and judges came up with the schemes. The judges are never responsible. If you don't like a verdict, you can always submit a complaint.
Это в каких?
When did this happen? After the Tsapoks, when the lands were taken away by Fyodor. December 2015, my assistant was invited and told that I had to coordinate my actions with the Department of Economic Security in order to prevent corruption in the area. They required us to stop inspections, which we were carrying out regarding Streltsov's companies.
Что вы
What did you find out? Illegal VAT refunds.
Мы обнаружили, значит, там незаконное
Illegal monetization.
Вот, все эти материалы были
We
переданы.
reported this to the police.
Вот, ну, как нам не стало известно, что
Streltsov and company resolved the issue in a regional court.
в суде, в арбитражном. Вот, и суд
The
отменил
court
решение.
canceled the decision of the inspectorate. He had connections in the region and in Moscow.
В Москве.
That's why he had felt so relaxed and felt free to threaten people, to take their lands and businesses, to resolve problems in illegal ways through the court. He also did not pay taxes. I have a rough understanding of what happens in our region, but this is too insolent and was supported by the regional government, MVD, and prosecutors. I am 100% sure. My criminal case has proven it. What were you accused of? Of going beyond my authority. Anyone can be accused of this. At the end of the trial, the judge Korobkov said, "For you, Goncharov, I want to say that if you did not stick your nose into the wallets of superior people, this would not have happened to you. They did not care about my lawyer or investigator who were there. He did not pay taxes. He escaped to Ukraine. He hides there and thinks the stolen 100 million will save him." Who manages your company now?
Ваша фирма, кто ей распоряжается?
Tkachov's agricultural complex. All the money and assets are in there, moved there by Streltsov. I've heard them talking about it. They talked about Sergei Kholmovoy and me. The answer was that is not a problem. We solved it. They tried to get rid of me. He stabbed me and cut through. He thought it was my stomach. He asked if my bowels were coming out. He had cut my hand through, down to the elbow, and tortured my elbow. I regained consciousness. It was all happening very quick. He was right in front of me. At that moment, he was right in front of me. The eye, the head, I kicked him out of the car. I started the car and left. They crippled my son. They broke his head, his jaw, his teeth. It happened when the others were already in prison. So that you would stay silent? Yes. So that I would keep it to myself. I know who did it. I know who brought people to beat up my son. I cannot prove it, though. It was done by Streltsov. He's such an animal. He traveled around the region or was informed about good farms that were good to take away. They checked documents and forged a case with lawyers, took it to the court. Then they took the farms and sold them. Or they sought loans and then said, "We have no money to pay the loan back. Buy this land." Alexander Tkachov acted like a gentleman who bought the farm and did not let it disappear. Who does the land in Kushchevskaya belong to? All the Tsapoks land belongs to Alexander. It's a part of agro-complex. 45,000 hectares is a lot of land. It cost a few billion rubles. So the ex-governor owns land that was obtained illegally, but not by him. That's right. The land that was obtained in 2014 by deception and extortion. The land of Kushchevskaya was bought a few years after the tragedy. There were a number of arrangements. Private actors who participated were not defendants in the case. All the land owned by agro-complex was bought on legal grounds after a thorough check of their right of ownership.
то я точно
I
знаю,
know
что
that in Kushchevskaya village,
таким же способом
thousands of hectares of land were stolen in the same way. Why there is not enough political will to set up a commission and involve practicing lawyers who know these fraud schemes. All of this can be found in archives.
Уголовное дело вообще 10 лет назад.
My case was initiated 10 years ago. It was not investigated, though. I guess on purpose.
Может быть, специально кто-то это не
Now
делал.
is the time.
Но пришло время. И,
Как вы объясняете,
Why do you
почему
think
это
they started now?
именно в этом?
ну, мне кажется, потому что один из
Maybe
подельников,
because one of their assistants,
один Стрельцов,
Sтрельцов,
оказался,
escaped,
в бегах, и люди, которые раньше не давали,
and people who did not confess earlier are doing it
начали
now.
просто давать.
The case is not closed yet. I think every hectare is to be returned to the owners. Nikolai Girdik, Alexander Isyuk, Valery Doroshenko, Sergei Hlomovoy should receive their compensations.
Представляете, какое противодействие было.
There was so much confrontation, pressure,
На
threats.
допросах там такое, ну что
We were
вы,
threatened at
зачем?
interrogations.
Хорошие
Why
люди.
do you need all these
Пропадали
problems?
документы,
We had documents lost,
затягивались,
answers delayed,
там,
investigations
продляли
extended.
следственные действия.
The main target of the farmers are not the Tsapoks themselves. The Tsapoks property was sold a long time ago, but the main business partner of the family, Vyacheslav Tsapovyaz, still owns a lot. All the assets are owned by his ex-wife, Natalia Strishnaya. She's now under house arrest and is not allowed to talk to journalists. She was accused of extortion of 70 million rubles from entrepreneur Alexander Isyuk.
Александра Ищука.
At first, we could not get what was happening. Only later, we discovered that Isyuk, Gordik, and others who presented themselves as victims are under the control of one of the biggest agricultural companies in the country.
Находятся под контролем одного довольно известного, одного из крупнейших в стране агропромышленных предприятий. Оппоненты, с
The
которыми
opponents we are dealing with are rascals. They have no morals.
Так говорю в первую очередь потому, что они пытаются использовать
I say this because they are trying to use the Kushchevskaya tragedy in order to achieve their lucrative goals.
сугубо меркантильных целей.
In December 2019, Natalia, my wife, was called and told what could happen to her. Lots of curse words. Then they played burial music. Then I received the same type of call. They threatened me too. Are you mad? It wasn't enough for you? We will kill you.
А эти
What were the threats about?
к чему относились?
Strishneya, Strishneya Fyodor, so that I take my testimony back. They threatened to kill me.
Вы сразу
And you understood it came from her? Of course. They were not hiding it.
Она вам звонила?
Did she call you too? She was on the side when they gave the call. They told me I had to recall my report. But the only report I submitted was about Strishneya and Fyodor.
Но мы совершенно точно
We
знаем,
know that it's a cheap performance on their side. They faked the threat in order to say that after she was released, they started to receive threats. So she should be sent back.
Они говорят неправду,
They're
потому
lying.
что к каким-либо преступлениям, если
Let's
даже
assume there were crimes.
причастна Наталья Стришня. Она тогда
Natalia
была
Strishneya
женой
was the
Вячеслава
wife
Tsapokya.
of Vyacheslav
Она была
Tsapovyaz.
химчисткой и
She had
кафе,
a laundry
хобби
and a
для
cafe
женщин,
business
знаете,
as a hobby.
маленький бизнес. Она никак не
She never took
участвовала
part
не то,
in
что
either
была
Tsapoks
даже
nor her
дела
husband's
собственного
affairs.
мужа. Они, на мой взгляд, и там того же
They labeled Streltsov, the treasurer and member of the gang, regardless of the materials of the investigation.
Судебного дела, как раз чтобы там его либо
And the trial, to isolate him from society, or to keep them away and take over his company.
Если бы
If they were not stopped in 2018, I mean Strishneya and Streltsov, they would have just restarted their activity.
опять там
They would have involved armed forces who were on their side.
будем говорить,
The
там,
cash flow has not stopped.
под себя подгребать. А опять пошли вот эти все, ну, как бы денежные потоки, они как
She thinks
шли,
she's a
так они
queen
сейчас
and
идут.
behaves this way.
Это Шахин
Very
за собой
inappropriate.
поводила.
She never forgets. She will take revenge.
Она не забывает ничего, она будет мстить до конца. И тот же Федя
Fyodor Streltsov is the same.
Пошива.
По факту, если она сейчас является собственником,
She is now the owner of the land that was obtained in an illegal way.
ну то ответственность как бы
This
автоматически
makes her
перешла к ней.
responsible, right?
Смотрите, по сегодняшний день
As of today,
не было
there was not a
установлено
single
ни
fact
одного факта
proving that any piece of land
незаконного
in
получения
Strishnya's
каких-либо
possession
из земель,
was
которыми
obtained
владеет Наталья
illegally.
Стришня. Кому-то это может резать
Someone might not like that Natalia and her children are the family of the gang's member,
какого-никакого, но
and they own a company.
договором участника банды.
But if he was
У них
accused,
есть предприятие. И
it
тот
doesn't
факт,
mean
что он
his
был
family
осужден,
and
не
ex-wife
лишает его, там, семью,
cannot
его бывшую
own
супругу
property.
права владения имуществом.
Deprivation of property
Никакой
was not
конфискации
and
этого
is
имущества,
not
как меры
the means of
наказания, не было и
punishment.
сейчас нет.
Сама
Natalia denies having committed the crimes. Vladimir Alexeyev has recently provided testimony against her. He was sentenced to life imprisonment.
Приговорен к пожизненному заключению.
10 лет назад, когда
10 years ago,
их заключили под стражу после...
when they were detained after that horrible murder of 12 people, all of them were placed in the same detention center
с организаторами этих убийств,
with
с тем
Sergei
самым
Tsapok,
Сергеем, с Повязанным
Vyacheslav Tsapovas.
И они его просили,
They asked Alexei
когда они находились в
not to tell about other
не
crimes
говорить
committed
о
by the gang
совершенных
members,
преступлениях других этой бандой, в том числе
including
помогательство
extortion of the farmers and entrepreneurs.
фермеров, предпринимателей, с тем
In
посылом,
exchange,
что они в
he
будущем,
was promised to
когда
receive
Алексей
help
будет
from
находиться в
them
местах лишения
in
свободы,
prison.
будут каким-то образом ему помогать. Ну, в итоге никакой помощи ни
But
из
he
какой
received
страны
no
к
help.
нему не поступило.
Значит, он
He served his sentence in Mordovia.
в одной из
It's a colony for people who got life sentences.
пожизненно. И в общем,
His life there was all right.
Потом в какой-то момент, несколько
Then,
лет назад,
a few
его
years ago,
перевели в другую,
He was suddenly relocated to another place
где, ну, как он сам
where,
говорит,
as he said,
условия были абсолютно
conditions were
невыносимы.
really bad.
И все эти годы он там сидел
All these
с одной
years, he had been
мечтой,
dreaming about
как
getting out of that
выбраться из этой
colony.
колонии. И нам поступила информация о том,
We
что
received information that
цена,
the
которую
first
ему
price he was
заплатили за
paid
то,
to
чтобы он
inform
стал, вот,
and
говорящим
lie about
головой
Natalia,
и оболгал
as well as about her brother,
Стишню и ее брата и так далее,
was
заключалась в
for
том, что
him to
его
be
переведут
sent back to the
обратно в ту
colony that he
колонию, в
liked.
которой ему нравилось. И это не
But it was not the
единственное
only thing he
вознаграждение, которое он
received.
получил.
Конкретно что он говорит?
Vladimir Alexeyev was giving out details on who went where
Кто исполнял, кто кому ездил, кто
and
сколько,
how much they
какую
extorted,
сумму отдал,
what
какие
documents
документы
should be
предоставлять
provided to the
потерпевшим.
victims.
Он сам непосредственно ездил к родственникам.
He went to see relatives of the victims and threatened to make them cooperate and sign documents assigned by leaders of the gang.
Те документы, которые требуют его вот так называемые главари.
А как вы думаете,
Why do you
почему
think
он решил-
Vladimir decided to provide testimony?
Может быть, то, что
Maybe
он посмотрел на
he
жизнь,
looked at Vyacheslav's life and how he lived in a colony in Amur Oblast,
где он там. Пасека у него была, крав,
where conditions were very good.
чувствовал. И его
Maybe
вот это
he wanted to have the
потрясло.
same.
Ну, единственное, то, что он сказал,
He
что
said he did not want to serve the sentence alone for everything the others had done.
ну, их группировка, которую они сделали, что он говорит, я один не собираюсь тут, ну, как бы, я уже понятно, что...
He wanted everyone to be
Не
responsible.
собираюсь, да, пусть отвечают все.
What poultry do you have? Broiler chicken. Kinza, parsley, dill, silver carp, common carp.
Ого!
Wow.
Когда вы приезжаете вот на ярмарку,
When you come here,
никто не
do
подходит,
people
вам
ask
не
for
просят
bribes?
платить, там, крыша, вот это
No.
все. То, что Цапков посадили
Has
в
life
2010-м,
become better
это
once the
повлияло на
Tsapoks
то,
were
кто
sent to
стал
jail
лучше?
in 2010?
Ну, смотря с какой стороны,
It depends.
может, просто спокойнее стало.
Maybe it calmed down a bit. But life here was okay, even with them.
Станица жила нормальной жизнью. И...
А почему вы сказали,
Why did you
что
say 10 years ago it was worse? Because I had problems with my leg.
сталкивались?
Did you have any experience with the Tsapoks' lawlessness? No. How come? No one touched me.
То есть вы приезжали, продавали рыбу.
So you
вас
came
не
to
просили
sell fish
платить
and you were not
никакие
disturbed.
там
I didn't make very much money. They targeted people with larger amounts of money. We're a small business. We don't make that much money. They didn't really bother us. They usually troubled young girls or students.
Дай мне сил, Бог, чтобы я подняться на ноги смог. Дай мне сил, Бог, чтобы я подняться на ноги смог.
Как пришла идея?
How did you come up with the idea of a studio? At first, I was doing it for myself. Then I got my friends involved. Then we found clients. If you want, I can play you one about Kushchevskaya.
Давай.
Sure, okay.
Это наш дом, Кушчевский район. И сколько пережил всего, знает только он. Родная земля, и в ней каждый патриот. И много для своих семей с любовью он несет наш дом, Кушчевский район.
Now, Russia has similar situations in other places where bandits manage towns. People are terrified. There's a conspiracy of silence, corruption, agreements. Every district of Krasnodar Krai, or maybe everywhere, they have a Tsapok-style gang. Who are the Tsapoks in Kushchevskaya today? I think they are people who hold high positions. Nothing has changed. Maybe they're afraid of killing someone. But I think they could still do it. They feel the impunity. All Russia is like this? All over Russia, sure. But we just live here, in this little town. We live in Kushchevskaya. When something bad happens, they compare it with the Tsapoks. Some even say there was more order under the Tsapoks. This photo in Sochi. People suspect he might be alive. A camera took a picture of a man who resembles him, not far from Sochi. Yeah, he is similar. People are afraid that he can come back. Fear is still present, of course. It's the government's fault. It's not present in that area. Everyone failed. It's everyone's fault. It's our fault too. If you Google Kushchevskaya, it looks quite scary. It's actually not that scary here. We have nice places for kids to go for a walk. We have places for families. We have a renovated park. All the facilities are there. People are not afraid of the Tsapoks anymore. The 1990s are not here anymore.
На своем веку эти дороги, наш район богат душой, хранимый Богом, не устану повторять слова. Сессионами ценимо каждый уголок нашей земли, в душе храним мы.